one. That was Jamie Foxx and Luda Unpredictable. I will tell you what is predictable. What is predictable is America's hatred and indifference for poor people. And I think two things in the last few weeks have demonstrated that more clearly than anything. I was watching the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and Jeffrey knew exactly where to go to get away with it. He knew exactly who to prey on. He knew the indifference that those crimes would be met with. People didn't know that young black people were coming up missing. They didn't care. He knew where to go if you were going to prey, if you were going to commit a crime and be successful at it because of the hatred of poor people and indifference of poor people and the apathy toward poor people. Where you go is around the proximity of a lot of poor people, and you will get away with almost anything. Conversely, Brett Favre is the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that Brett Favre preyed on people. I'm not saying Brett Favre murdered and ate people, but Brett Favre knew the same thing Jeffrey Dahmer did. No one cares about poor people. He knew that you can get away with it. He didn't eat poor people, but he sure didn't care if they ate. He didn't kill poor people, but he didn't care if they died as a result of him taking funds for them. And in the discussions of the media and the government in Mississippi and the bureaucrats in Mississippi, all of the discussions they had was about getting caught, not for moral reasons, but for legal reasons, because they knew what they were doing was illegal. But they didn't feel what they were doing was immoral. There's a hatred of poor people that is inherent in our everyday in parlance. Why wouldn't it be okay to steal funds for welfare recipients when all they do is drain society? All they're going to do is smoke and drink and do alcohol. They're draining the society. This is free. So whatever they get or don't get is not a big deal. Why would they feel? They don't feel uncomfortable taking from poor people and giving it to rich people to build volleyball courts and other sports franchises, because they don't. It's better to give it to people who have a future and they're going to do something positive with it than people who are just going to use it for nothing, who didn't work for it, who are just poor and a drain on society. So whatever they get, they get. You can do whatever you want to do poor people. You can tell by the way we're policed. You can tell by the way poor people have to live. You can tell by the way even when they go to hospital, the way they bank, almost every aspect of their life is because they're viewed through the prism of the fact that everybody knows they're poor. When we are cutting funds, it's always welfare. When we're cutting schools, well, they don't go to school anyway. Who cares? So Jeffrey Dahmer and Brett Favre and politicians all know that you can do whatever you want to poor people and it will be met with a collective silence. They know it. Nobody's angry at Mississippi because he did it to poor people. I mean, you have a vested interest in protecting your favorite son, somebody who enlightened Mississippi, who made it better. All he did is to people who was a drain on our society. All Jeffrey Dahmer did was kill people who no one really cared about, who are a drain on society. Do whatever you want to poor people, and no one really cares. It's met with a collective yawn. The reason right now that there is no serious legal jeopardy, I don't think there'll ever be, because he did what he did to people who no one really cares about, who overtly, we all know they were. Look at the way, look at the language, look at the parlance, look at the apathy we meet poor people with. It is so expensive to be poor in this country, no one can afford to do it. No one is more disrespected and less heard. And when I say poor people, I mean black and brown people. And if you white and poor, you just a nigga. I'm sorry to tell you. No one cares about what they do to poor people. No one. You could steal for them. You could slay them. No difference. Because whatever they get, it is like a disease to them. Like they could catch it. You could catch being poor. Everything else is the antithesis of that. Christians, what would Jesus do? Not treat the poor this way. The Statue of Liberty, Emma Lazarus, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled Mathis, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore, seeing these, the tempest toss, and I lift my life but the golden door. Now we ought to write, just kidding. Jeffrey Dahmer knows. Brett Favre knew. Elected officials know. Policemen know. Everybody knows. You can do whatever you want to poor, because the truth of the matter is that as much as we pretend like we don't know it, this country hates the poor. That's a little note from the GED section. We got the Jazz Report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.